Here is the supplies that I need for this project. Starting on the left-hand side, which is the side that's going to be taking water from the hot water tank. So I've got a couple of T's that are going to tie the supply and return lines into the input and output of the hot water tank. I've got this pump and then the heat exchanger, and you can see all the little adapters and things like that go along with it. And then from there, there'll be on the glycol side of things there's the pump there, and then the heat exchanger. You can see I've already got the adapters installed. This is the thermostat that I decided on. It's actually for a greenhouse, but I think it'll work really good for what I need it to do. It has a 1500 watt capacity, which I think is going to be sufficient for one fan and 2 small pumps. I've got the expansion tank, temperature and pressure gauge, and then this is my fill and drain valve. So all of these items are from either Amazon or Home Depot. Yeah, I split the video here just to give you an idea how I laid out all the components in this system. The first component there is going to be the pump that draws the hot water out of the hot water tank, and then you can kind of see the water to water heater exchanger beside that. The second pump, which will be mounted all the way to the right side there, is going to be drawing hot water out of the water to water exchanger to the water to air exchanger. And I haven't installed these really permanently because I'm going to be using these for another project later, but I just wanted to use this project to kind of get my feet wet into using pumps and heat exchangers and kind of play around with it to see what works and what doesn't. Here's the final installation inside the house. I use 3/4 inch PEX, red for the hot side, blue for the return, and just use some 3/4 inch pinch crimp clamps, which work pretty good. The connections to the hot water tank were slightly different as I used push shark bites on there, just because I'm not super comfortable soldering in an enclosed space like that, and with pipes that have water in them, I always find it never turns out great. So those shark bite connectors work really good for that. The only thing I'm going to change here is after the installation, I noticed that I wasn't really getting hot water coming out of the faucets, and I think it's because there's some kind of mixing that happens if that system is open like this. So I'm going to add a valve, a zone valve, right after the pump to close this system off when not in use. But other than that, it turned out really good. So now out in the garage and putting the PEX connectors onto the water to air heat exchanger. Just gave them a little sand with some emery cloth, put on some flux, and soldering on a union right here, and then I'll add on those PEX connectors. This heat exchanger measures 12 by 12, and it's probably 3 inches thick, so it has multiple passes in there for the water. And as you can see on the left, I just bought a exhausting fan for the blower for this heat exchanger, and I modify it slightly, and it just bolts right up to this heat exchanger really nicely. Turned out pretty good. Here's a picture of the finished product on that heat exchanger. I was able to mount it on a bracket just on a shelf in the garage, which worked out pretty good. You can see the side tanks of the heat exchanger and how the fan looks once it's mounted up there. The fan ended up just bolting right up, which was really surprising, and it made almost a perfect seal on the back of that heat exchanger. And I guess what I'm doing here is showing off my soldering, which turned out a solid okay, and it didn't leak, so that's a bonus. So this is the install in the house, and so I added a zone valve in here. You can see it on the right, and also a valve to regulate the flow. that zone valve there operates on 110, and it'll shut this water flow off the hot water tank as soon as the system isn't operational. And that just regulates the flow going back into the hot water tank so that I can achieve maximum heat transfer in that heat exchanger. I get a delta of about 20 degrees Celsius. You can see at the bottom, that green thing is my thermostat, and it has a remote sensor in the garage, which turns on the whole system when the temperature reaches the set point. Overall, turned out really good. I'm very happy with it and keeps my little garage warm. All right, so here's the finished product in the garage. I've got the water lines coming through here, and I've got to insulate that, of course, and then that valve on the side is to bleed out any air. It's actually pretty difficult to get all the air out of there. And so what I've been doing is just running the system and once in a while just purging it through there. It works really good. You know, I've ran it for a little bit and it seems to heat up the garage, and it does cycle off. So it does get warm enough in here to cycle it off. As you can see from this video, I'm not a plumber or a heating expert, but I did want to try this project in order to mess around with water pumps and heat exchangers and things like that. If you do like the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd like it and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.